Fairy tales about princesses can be found in all cultures throughout all of time. The most well-known and iconic of those is that of the Disney princess. These persecuted heroines have ascended to nearly goddess status in the eyes of children all around the world. There is nearly nowhere you can go without finding a Disney princess backpack or their face on a lunchbox. What is it about these tales that has kept them alive and well throughout all of the ages? What do we love about them? Is it just great marketing, or is it something deeper? Join me as we explore the enigma that is the Disney princess by interviewing some women right here in Salem.
My favorite Disney princess is probably Rapunzel.
Hard to say. I think I enjoy Snow White the most.
I'd say either Moana or Mulan.
I think it would be Snow White.
My favorite Disney princess would be Mulan.
My favorite Disney princess is Belle.
She has long, beautiful hair, and she's always brave and adventurous and just wants to get out of the castle and have fun.
I love the Seven Dwarfs. I love all their songs. I loved like all the woodland creatures that were in it, and then I also loved the scary protagonist. I found it terrifying as a kid, but I also kind of liked it.
They're both brave. They try not to be like the other people, I guess, in their tribe or their town or culture.
Other ones are a little cheesy. They're just waiting for the man to rescue. But Mulan, it's not that story at all. So
Why? I think when I was a little girl, I just identified with her being brown-eyed, brown-haired, loving books, being an introvert, those types of things. So she's my girl. To the point that when I got older, I named my firstborn Isabella, almost for the sole reason of being able to call her Belle, which I do to this day. She's now a teenager.
I used to watch all the Disney princesses 24/7 on like Blu-ray DVD.
I never dressed up as a Disney princess, which is probably kind of strange, I realize now that I say that. Most girls, I feel like, had a princess that they dressed up as. I also never had like the dolls, or like I remember my sister having like her bedding was Snow White bedding, and she had a sleeping bag and all these things.
I kind of watched them 24/7. I would even pretend I was them and just dress up every single day.
every day after lunch was Disney movie time. Okay, so this is weird. When I remember being 3 years old and I had a Jasmine costume, and they had like the little plastic high heels, and I remember putting them on and at 3 years old going, oh, my feet are so sexy. And I just, looking back on that, it was so cringy. But I think that the impact was not so much about the prince, but very much about how a princess behaves. So it was all about acting like a princess versus having anything to do with romance or waiting for Prince Charming.
Clearly, everybody loves a Disney princess story. I actually found this costume within 15 minutes of posting on Facebook that I needed a costume, and I got 4 replies from adult women who had Disney princess costumes. Do these stories make a positive impact on our culture as a whole? And are they timeless due to the lessons that they teach?
I think that people should definitely encourage kids to watch, especially Disney princesses, because like I said, they have great messages, it's such a fun story, and they do give off really good vibes and just like ideas of what you could be like when you're older. Like I said with Rapunzel, how she was so brave, it gave me a sense of, oh, I would love to be brave like that, like take healthy risks and just be proud of who I am.
Yeah, I think in general they're really positive. I think they've come a long way too in terms of making a positive impact rather than kind of whitewashing as an impact. I think the representation does matter for little girls looking up to princesses because it is such a big deal for so many. But I also don't necessarily think they have a ton of intrinsic value in terms of life lessons. Most of them, especially the earlier on ones, are pretty niche. I think of like Cinderella, and I feel like for me, as a kid, I didn't draw a lot of life lessons out of that when I watched it. Yes, I wouldn't be like, here's the moral ground in which you should stake your whole life, or these Disney movies, but I am.
I think there's a lot to be said about you can let your kids watch just about anything as long as you have conversations with them about what they're watching. And so people who let Disney just raise their kids without any talking to them about it, I don't think that that's wise for any type of media. Kids need to be raised by their parents, not what they're watching.
Good role models in Disney princesses, I think that I can't think of any exception where they didn't face some sort of adversity, challenges, problems, and for the most part, I'm trying to skim through all of them in my mind, the princesses' roles are developed where they're really figuring out those problems on their own or with help, but they're the lead in walking through and navigating the issues that they're faced with. On the negative side, there's typically a prince to rescue as well, and that can happen in life, but I think that Disney did a good job with creating a mixture where it's not one or the other. It's not sole reliance or being completely rescued. It's a mix of we need people, and there's nothing wrong with love and loving yourself.
I think one big lesson would be a lot throughout all the Disney princesses, is to be true to yourself. Don't let other people stand in what you believe in and what you think is true and who you want to be. Another one that I think is Merida. That movie's literally called Brave. She is a very strong female character, and she knows how to be brave and really just go for it. And I thought that was so cool how she would shoot arrows and stuff, and she's just so strong and athletic, I guess. And I think that's really cool.
So I don't really know that there's universal morals in Disney movies. Okay, so let's take Little Mermaid for instance. What exactly is the moral there? Disobey your parents and sign a binding contract to a witch? Nope. I mean, if anything, as a parent, you go on King Triton's side and you're just like, what are you doing? And now I have to sign my life away to rescue you because you wanted legs and a cute guy that you didn't know? And I think that goes back to the parental question too, right? I don't necessarily watch shows to gain morals from them. I think that's where parenting comes in. And honestly, if I were a parent, I am, but as a parent looking at The Little Mermaid, I would have a conversation with my daughter about what a dumb girl Ariel was, but still entertaining, still mildly entertaining.
There may be some disagreement on whether these stories are excellent moral compasses, but there's no denying that they capture our imagination and have done so for thousands of years. Let's take a moment to dive into the history of the Disney princess. The princess stories are inspired by fairy tales from all around the world and throughout time. The earliest known variants of Cinderella was between 7 BC and AD 23. In the story, a Greek slave named Rodolphus marries the king of Egypt after he comes into possession of one of her sandals. He then takes that shoe and goes across the world to try to find the woman who fits the shoe. Sound familiar? Cinderella stories can be found in Egypt, Cambodia, the Philippines, Cuba, Indonesia, Ireland, Laos, Mexico, Greece, the Caribbean, China, and much more. This cannot simply be a coincidence. Let's talk to our lovely ladies to see why they think this might be.
I think that's a huge coincidence that we all have the same exact storyline, maybe just a little bit differences, but pretty much the same storyline. I wouldn't really believe it. Well, I think that like all things that are popular, it started off in one section or country, and then because so many, especially little girls with princesses, loved it so much that it just got expanded, and through different religions, people spread it on, and especially because there was such good messages and well made that it just got huge.
You know, I obviously can't say for sure, but I think there's certain cultural motifs that exist everywhere. So like Cinderella is an example of, like, you know, it's cliche, but that's why it's around, right? Like a woman looking for her true love and a man finding his true love. And especially with the whole like shoe finding business, I feel like, you know, back then that was, especially early on, a shoe was probably the most uniquely fitted thing to a person. People wore the same shoe a lot, right? So your foot would be like imprinted in that shoe. So it makes a lot more sense than it does today, where it's like, well, everyone's a size 7, right? Like it could fit anyone. So I think there were some cultural things and motifs, especially in the earlier on stories, to just kind of live forever and they'll kind of always be true.
There are some other stories that aren't Disney princesses, monsters. They would get like the children in culture to behave and not be jerks, and it could be almost the same ways. It could build up characters and people, and it could be to not lie or something like that. Also, sometimes it's fun just to enjoy a fake story.
I would think because of people's wanting to believe that there really is someone, or I would say God, they will be saved by, especially in, you know, some of the things you see in cultures that are, people aren't treated well, people are abused, and I would think you, especially if you're raised that way, you really desire, we live here on earth and we're gone, and then, you know, I believe there's a savior out there. I think people want to believe they'll be rescued, that they'll be rescued from people and themselves.
I think that there's a certain aspect of the hero's journey, right? You can find similar types of stories anywhere. You're gonna find common elements because while humans are creative, we're not that creative, and honestly, we're just tweaking things that we've been exposed to before. I think it's weird, all of the super old one, like you were saying, the Cinderella story going back to the BC times and being found in all the different countries back before there was a printing press. And humans tell stories. It's a part of our DNA, essentially, to tell stories. And so I think that once you find a good story, it spreads like wildfire. And so yeah, the Disney princesses, they're based on good stories, and so that's why they're so popular.
Probably the foundation of life has struggles of all different kinds, and they involve lows, so whether that's economic or whatever, and everybody wants to be something, wants to get through whatever it is, or have an identity that's unique and forged by something. And I think that's probably why they've stood the test of time. I mean, I can't help but think about religion in that too. Yeah, just wanting an identity, a story, and every single one of them has lessons in them, many different lessons. So.
The theories range from simply coincidence to the presence of a collective unconsciousness that joins all of mankind throughout history and even today. A base primordial narrative that exists so deep within us, it's almost instinct. One of the women even mentioned the hero's journey, which is a predictable series of events all heroes or heroines journey through on their adventure. I think we can all agree that the Disney princess stories are pretty predictable. I mean, they'll have some sort of obstacle or challenge, followed by a call to adventure. Most likely, they'll have some sort of supernatural aid, they'll have friends, maybe even animal sidekicks, romance, victory, and last but not least, happily ever after. Whether these stories are meant to teach us a lesson or simply to entertain, there's something that resonates with us. Everyone loves a good happy ending. These stories have always and will always exist as long as there are humans to dream about magic pumpkins and talking mice.